Hello and welcome to Edisathi. Today we'll talk about quantitative comparison. This is a very important topic and very new type of questions are asked. So there's an ample scope for you to make very silly mistakes when you get a question on quantitative comparison. So I'll request you to spend enough time on this lecture and understand the concept very well. So let's understand, what do you mean by quantitative comparison? As the name reveals, you are asked to compare two quantities. The two quantities A and B which are given to you. Using the additional information, you will have to compare the two quantities that are given to you. And after you have compared, you have to decide which of the following case applies, or which of the four answer options matches with the quantities that you have compared. You have to mark option A if the quantity A is greater. You have to mark B if the quantity B is greater. You have to mark C if the two quantities are equal, and you have to mark D if the relationship between the two quantities cannot be determined from the information that has been given to you. So these are the four answer options that are given to you. You will be given two quantities A and B. Just compare them and find out numerically which is a bigger quantity, A or B, and then mark accordingly. These are the standard option choices in case of questions on quantitative comparison. Okay? And a thing that you need to keep in your mind is, if there's a symbol that appears more than once in a question, it will have the same meaning throughout the question. So moving ahead, let's look at what is the significance of doing this lecture. Out of a set of 20 questions that you get, there are 9 questions that are there on quantitative comparison. So it is very important to understand this concept in greater depth. Secondly, the questions that are there on quantitative comparison are from all areas of quantitative reasoning. You'll get questions related to arithmetic, geometry, algebra, data analysis, permutation and combination. And it tests your ability to apply mathematical concepts that you have studied till now in a diverse question formats. So whatever concept that you have studied will be applicable in the questions related to quantitative comparison. Okay? There are various tips that you need to follow while doing questions on quantitative comparison. The first and the most important thing is memorize the sequence of answer choices. And they are the same answer choices that you get all the time. So if you remember that you have to mark A, B or C, it is very easy for you to mark it and does not waste your time going back and reading the answer options again and again and then seeing which one is matching. Secondly, I have to read the information very carefully for each and every question. I should not skip out, or I should not miss the important information related to the question. Then I'll compare the quantity in column A to the quantity in column B. So I'll compare the two quantities which are given to me, and I will always try and stay alert, because there are too many chances that you may commit a mistake while you are solving a question on quantitative comparison. So you have to be always alert when you are doing a question on quantitative comparison. Then the most important thing is, you'll have to ask yourself, is the relationship always true? That means if I am comparing column A and column B, is column A always greater than B, or is column A always less than B? This always is very important. If the relationship is not always true, or I should say, if it is not consistently true, then my answer option would be D. If it is true in some cases but not all the cases, then my answer option would be option number D, because I'm unsure about the relationship. There is a there's uncertainty involved in the relationship. Now, looking at a strategy to solve questions related to quantitative comparison, the first thing that I can use is an estimation. If calculator is available to me, obviously I would use a calculator thing. But if I try to estimate, round up the things and eliminate the excess information which is provided to me in the question, I would avoid wasting time. So if possible, I would eliminate the excess information. I'll try to round up the thing to avoid wasting time. Secondly, attempt to make the two columns look as similar as possible. For example, you'll have to make sure that the units in both the columns should be the same. Okay. Also, if one of the answer option is fraction, the other one is decimal, try to convert both into decimal or both into fraction so as you get an easy comparison for both of them. So if the answer options, or I should say if the two columns look similar, it is easier for us to solve the question. Eliminate any information that the columns share. So if there's the information that the two columns share, that information should be eliminated. This will leave you with an easier comparison. Okay, so I need to keep this in mind. Assign values for unknown or for variables. If you can do this quickly, many comparisons will become very straightforward. Plug in the numbers for variables whenever they are given. So if I can plug in the numbers, but I'll have to make sure that I simplify the equation or the expression as much as possible before plugging in the values. So before plugging, the question should be in a simplified format. Okay, try not to get stuck in doing a question. If you feel that you are wasting too much of time or you are getting involved in a very difficult computation, stop and pick up an easier way to solve a question. There's often more than one way to solve a question. Always try to pick up a easier one. Make no assumptions whenever you're solving a question on quantitative comparison. If the question asks you to make comparison, then choose D as your answer option. Okay, you cannot assume anything whenever you are doing a question on quantitative comparison. Let's get started and let's look at some of the questions. We'll be doing 25 questions in this lecture. You will have lecture 2 which will have a little bit difficult questions on quantitative comparison. So we'll start up with the simpler ones and we'll start up the questions based upon the topic of arithmetic. Let's look at the first question. The first question, there are two quantities A and B that needs to be compared. Quantity A says the least prime number greater than 24. So I need to find out the least prime number greater than 24. Now if I look at it, 25 is not a prime number, 26 is not a prime number, 27 again not a prime number because it is divisible by 3, 28 even cannot be a prime number. So the least prime number greater than 24, I get my answer option as 29. If I look at quantity B, the greatest prime number less than 28. So the greatest prime number less than 28. Now if I look at it, between 24 and 28 there is no prime number. So if I just go back, 23 not a prime. Is 23 a prime number? Yes, 23 is a prime number. So if we just compare the two, obviously quantity A is greater. Even I don't need to look at quantity B. When I found out 29, the greatest prime number less than 28 would be obviously less than 29. So quantity A is greater. Moving ahead, question number 2, if I look at it, it is given to me that Lionel is younger than Maria. So Maria is older than Lionel, but there's no relationship which is given to me. Now let's look at the two things. Twice Lionel's age. I don't know Lionel's age, so twice Lionel's age and Maria's age is what I have to compare. Now, whenever you have a question of this type, you can always plug in the values and get your answer. She could be 2. She could be 10. This could be one of the situation. Or she could be 10 and she could be 9. So if I double the age, what I'm getting here is 4. What I'm getting here is 18. Now, comparing 10 and 4 and comparing 10 and 18, I get two results which are inconsistent. So my answer would be option number D. The relationship cannot be determined from the information given. Because if I do here Maria's age is greater, and in the second thing, quantity A is turning out to be greater than quantity B. So in the first case, I get quantity B which is greater. In the second case, I get quantity A which is greater. Inconsistent data, the relationship cannot be determined. Moving on quickly, we get question number 3. Now this is a very simple question. I am not spending time on this question. You can use your calculators to get to your answers. So you just have to calculate 54% of 360 and compare it with 150. You already have a calculator for this. If you calculate this thing out, this is coming out to be greater than 150. The answer for this is coming out to be, you can always use your calculators, 194, which is greater than 150. Moving ahead, again a very simple question that we have. W is greater than 1. So I'll have to assume different values for W. I can take W is equal to 2. I can take W is equal to 5 or 10. The only thing that I need to keep in my mind is it is not given to me that W is an integer. So W value could be 1.1 as well. If I miss out on this value 1.1, I may not get my answer. So if I just look here, 7W minus 4 and 2W plus 5. I'll have to compare the two things. So if I just put the value of 1.1, so it is 7.7 minus 4, which is 3.7 that I have, which is quantity A that I get when I put this value. And if I put here, it is 5 plus 2.2, which is giving me a value of 7.2. So from the first thing, what I get is option number B. So because B is coming out to be greater. Now let me put W is equal to 2. So this will be 14 minus 10, 14 minus 4, which will be 10. And if I put here, this will be 4 plus 5, which is 9. It is coming out to be quantity A greater than quantity B. Since I am getting an inconsistent result, my answer would be option number D. The relationship cannot be determined from the information which has been given to me. Moving ahead, let's look at another question from arithmetic. R, S, T are three consecutive odd integers such that R is less than S less than T. You can assume the values. This is 3, this is 5, this is 7. So that is what you can do. Now quantity A and quantity B. Quantity A, if you take R plus S plus 1. So this is coming out to be 8 plus 1, which is 9. S plus T, 7. And 5, it is coming out to be 12 minus 1, which is 11. So if you just look here, what you're getting is quantity B is greater than quantity A. So quantity B is greater. Even if you take any other value, you will always find out that quantity B is turning out to be greater than quantity A. If you don't want to plug in the values, you can do it without plugging in the values. In that way, the method would be, you can keep R as R, S can be written as R plus 2 because they are consecutive, and T can be written as R plus 4. They are all consecutive values that I have. So I can just put back the values R plus S plus 1. So R plus 2 plus 1. So this will be 2R plus 3. This value would be S can be written as R plus 2, R plus 4. So this will be 2R plus 6 minus 1 plus 5. So if I compare it, option B or quantity B will always be greater than quantity A. Let's look at another question. Emma spent $75 buying a used bicycle and $27 repairing it. Then she sold the bicycle for 40% more than the total amount she spent buying and repairing it. I'll have to compare the two quantities, and quantity A is the price at which Emma sold the bicycle and 140. So if I just look at the question, what I look at it, this is my cost price. This is my price that I have been spending on repairing the thing. So if I just add up both the prices, I'll get 102. 102 is the price. Okay. Then she sold the bicycle at 40% more than the total amount she spent on buying. So this is the price plus a 40% increment on this price is what she end up spend. What she end up spend. selling the thing at. So which is coming out to be 142.8. You can always use a calculator since it is available to you. So if I now compare quantity A with quantity B, I would get quantity A is greater than quantity B. I hope you're getting the questions. Moving ahead, the question says you can always pause this video and read the question. So pause the video, read the question, read the quantities, and then we'll compare it up. So if I just now try to calculate the things, what I'll see is the property tax was 2500 on a value of 125. So if I calculate the percentage of property tax, it is 2500 on a base of 12500 into 100, because I want my answer to be coming out in percentage. So if I just calculate, property tax was 20%. 20% is the property tax. Now the property tax on an assessed value of $160,000. So it will be again 20% on $160,000. So which is coming out to be 33,200. So if you just calculate 20% on 160,000, it is coming out to be $3,200. Now if I compare it with quantity B, I would get option number A as my answer. The property tax is more than $3,000. Let's look at another question. Now this question is based upon time, speed and distance. The question is, the bus leaves the station traveling at a constant speed of 45 miles per hour. Another bus leaves the same station after 1 hour, heading in the same direction, traveling at a constant speed of 50. Then quantity A states the number of hours after the first bus left that the bus will pass each other. And quantity B is 8. So if I calculate what is the number of hours, I can see if it is more than 8 or less than 8. Now if I look at it, this is a question which is based upon the concept of relative speed. I hope you remember the formula. Relative speed is initial distance separating the two over, the time to meet up, which be distance over their relative speed. Now initial distances, since the second bus has started after 1 hour, the first bus would have covered a distance of 45 miles in 1 hour. So the distance that the second bus needs to cover is 45 divided by relative speed. Since both of them are moving in the same direction, the relative speed is the difference of their individual speeds. So this will be 45 over 5, which comes out to be 9 hours. So this is 9 hours after the second bus starts, that they meet up. So from the beginning, it will be 10 hours because the first bus is moving alone for 1 hour. So my answer would be option number A. A is greater because quantity B, which is given to me, is 8 hours. Now these were some of the questions related to arithmetic. Let's look at some of the questions related to geometry now. So the first question is, this is a triangle which is given to me, and it is given to me that PQ is equal to PR. So PQ is equal to PR. Now the thing that I know is, if two sides of triangle are same, the angles opposite to those two sides would also be same. So this angle PQR will be equal to angle PRQ. That is the thing that I know from the information which has been given to me. Now looking at the quantities, quantity A says the value of PS, this PS, and quantity B is the value of this SR. Now I have to tell that whether PS is greater than SR, PS is equal to SR, PS is less than SR, or the relationship cannot be determined. Now if I look at it, now this angle is equal to this angle. I don't know anything about angle P. Angle P is not known to me, and I don't know whether S is the midpoint or whether QS is the angle bisector or whether QS is the perpendicular bisector. No information is given to me regarding QS, and from the information which is given to me, I cannot say anything about QS. So unless QS is a median, PS will not be equal to SR. Or if I know anything about this angle or the ratio in which the angles are getting divided or anything, I cannot tell anything about PS and SR in terms of length. So my answer would be the relationship cannot be determined from the information which is given to me. Now for these kind of questions, you require an in-depth knowledge about the concept. So if you are not clear about the concept, it is very, very difficult for you to solve the question related to quantitative comparison. Moving ahead, we have a figure in which there are two squares and they have a side length of 6. So this is 6, this is 6, this is 6, all of them are 6. So the bigger turns out to be a rectangle with length as 12 and width as 6. Now quantity is the area of the shaded region. So if I look at it, this PS becomes the diagonal of a rectangle. I know that the diagonal of a rectangle divides it into two triangles of equal area, or it is half. So what I can do is the area of the shaded region will be half the area of rectangle. Area of rectangle would be length into width. So length into breadth is the area of rectangle. Half of it will be this area. So if I just do it, it is 36. And quantity B is also 36. So my answer will be the two quantities turn out to be equal. Okay, let's look at another question related to geometry. This is a figure which is given to me. The diameter of the circle is 10. So that is given to me. Now the question is the area of the quadrilateral ABCD and 40. I have to compare whether the area of the quadrilateral ABCD is equal to 40, greater than 40, less than 40, or I can't find out. So if I look at it, if I just look at the diameter of the circle, the problem in this question is I don't know the center. I don't know if this figure is exactly to the scale. In that case, does this AC pass through the center of the circle? Even if it does, this AC is 10, but I don't know any other information regarding the length of any other sides. Now if I have to look at it, the area of such a quadrilateral, which is cyclic quadrilateral, will be given by S into S minus A into S minus, sorry, this S is not there, S minus B, S minus C, S minus D, where ABCD are the side lengths and S is equal to the semi-perimeter. Or if in any case I am able to prove that this is a rectangle or a square or a trapezium or a rhombus, it will be very easy for me to find out the area. But here I don't know any other information. The only thing that I know is the diameter of the circle. So it is not possible for me to find out the area of the quadrilateral. So if I cannot find out the area of the quadrilateral, I cannot compare the two quantities. Thereby my answer being option number D. The relationship cannot be determined because there is no information which is given to me regarding the area of the cyclic quadrilateral. Let's look at another question. ABC are the three triangles. The length, width of rectangle A are 10% greater and 10% less than respectively the length and width of rectangle C. So I need to know the length and width of rectangle C. Now an easier way for me to do these kind of questions is just plug in the values. I can assume the length to be 100 and width to be 100 as well. Now you must be thinking that it is a rectangle. Why I am assuming the length and width to be same? Who says I cannot? A square is a special case of rectangle. So I can always use the same values to get to an easy answer. So this is rectangle C. Now if I look at rectangle A and rectangle B. Now what is the length is 10% greater, so it is 110, and the width is 10% lesser. That means it is 90. The length and width of rectangle B are 20% greater and 20% less. So this will be 120 and this will be 80. Then the width of C. I have to find out the area of rectangle A and comparison to the area of rectangle B. So area of rectangle A is 110 into 90. Now this is a very simple calculation. If still you are not confident about this calculation, what you can do is use your calculator for multiplying 110 with 90 to get your answer of 9900. And then multiply 120 with 80 to get to your answer for this. So this is coming out to be 9600. Very simple for you to compare. I know that the area of rectangle A is more than area of rectangle B. However, there are other methods as well. If you're confident about the concept of successive percentage change, you can get the answer as well. Like 10% greater and 10% lesser. 10 minus 10 minus 10 into 10 by 100. So if I compare A and C, the area of A is 1% less than that of C. And if I compare B and C, it is minus 20 plus 20 minus 20 into 20 by 100, it will be 4% less. So obviously A is greater than B. Okay, moving ahead, let's look at another question. What you have is, there's a parallelogram which is given to me. Now I need to know certain things about parallelogram. One thing is opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are equal, opposite angles are equal, and adjacent angles are supplementary. So this is the thing that I need to know about parallelogram. Now the question is area of a parallelogram. The area of a parallelogram is given by, whatever is your length into width into sine of the angle between them. So if it is 6 into 4 into sine of 55 degrees, and this is 24. Now 6 into 4, 24, sine 55, and 24 is the comparison that I have to do. Now I don't need to know the value of sine 55 for this. The only thing that I need to know is that sine 0 is 0 and sine 90 is 1. So any angle between 0 and 90, the value of sine of that angle is increasing from 0 to 1. So if I take any angle between this, so for example, if I take sine 45 or sine 30, I know this answer is half, this answer is 1 by root 2. So this value is gradually increasing. So sine 55 would be more than sine 45, but it will be less than sine 90. So it will be less than 1. So 24 multiplied by something which is less than 1, my answer would be less than 24, thereby making option number B as my answer to question number 30. Clear? Move ahead and let's look at some of the questions related to algebra now. So this is the information which is given to you. Y is 2x square plus 7x minus 3. The two quantities which are given to me are x and y. Now I have to compare these two quantities on the basis of this. Again, if I can plug in the values, it will be very easy for me. So how to plug in the values? Once assume x to be positive and once assume x to be negative. So if I assume x to be positive, let me take the value as 2. So if I just solve it out, y is coming out to be 2 square 4, 4 into 2, this is 8 plus 14 minus 3. If I just do it, I don't need to calculate. I know that y is greater than x. Now if I put the value of x as minus 2, what I'll get? Y is equal to 8 minus 14 minus 3. Now y here is coming out to be negative. So y is coming out to be less than x. Sorry, let me just solve it out for y. Y is coming out to be, if I just solve it out, it's coming out to be 9 minus 9. So it is less than minus 2. My answer will be, the relationship cannot be determined because one time y is coming greater than x, another time y is coming less than x, depending upon the value of x. So I can find out which of them exactly is greater. Let's look at another question. The question is, y is greater than 4 and it is not given to you that y is an integer. Y can be 4.4, y can be 4.1. So I can assume any values for y. So if I just look at this, quantity A is greater, quantity B is greater. What is quantity A? 3y plus 2 over 5 and 1. Right? So if I just look at it, if I put the value of y as 5, 3 into 5, 15 plus 2, 17 divided by 5. This is coming out to be what? 3 point something and 3 point something. And quantity B, which is anyways 5. Quantity B is greater than this. Let me take any other value. So if I take the value of y as, let me assume anything, 10. So 30 plus 2, 32 by 5, it is 6 point something, which is less than that. My answer will be option number 2. Or option number B, quantity B is turning out to be greater. Even if you take the value as 4.1 or anything, the quantity B is coming out to be always greater than quantity A. Let's look at question number 16. Read the question, it's very, very simple. So if I just try to solve this question, I would see that I can take 2 raised to power 29 common. It will be 2 minus 1 over 2. So this will be 2 raised to power 29, 1 cancelling out with this. So I'll get 2 raised to power 28. The two quantities are turning out to be equal to each other. 17th question, x square plus 1 and 2x minus 1. Now, if I have a question of this type, I need not think too much, because squaring a number and multiplying it with 2, except for a case of 2, squaring would always be greater than doubling the number. So if you square a number, except for a case of 2, it will always be greater. So x square will always be greater than 2x. Let x be positive or negative. And here I am adding 1 and I am subtracting 1. So obviously option number A would be greater. However, you can plug in the values. You can assume the value of x to be 5, 7, 10, whatever that you want, and you can find out your answer. The next question is, now the first information which is given to me, state x square into y is greater than 0, positive. Now x square I know will always be positive because square of a number is always positive. This implies y has to be positive. So what does this mean? From this case I get that y is positive. And what is given to me? Y square into x is negative. Now what does that mean? Square of a number cannot be negative. So that means x has to be negative. So what do I get is, now if I compare the two quantities x and y, x is negative and y is positive. That means quantity B is greater than quantity A. Let's look at question number 19. So if I look at the information which is given to me, I would just cross multiply and I would get something like this. So what I get, m square is equal to root 64, or m square comes out to be 8. So the value of m would be plus minus 2 root 2 or plus minus root 8. Now if I compare m with 8, so what is the value of m? It is plus minus root 8. This is always less than 8, thereby giving me an answer. Option number B, quantity B is greater. If you think you're not able to get the answer so quickly, you can always pause the question. You can always pause the video whenever you see the question. Try to solve it out and then unpause the video and look at the answers. Question number 20. X is an integer. Now here it is specifically saying integer. So the value of x that I can take is 2, 3, 4, 5 and so on. Then the two quantities that I have to compare is 3 raised to power x plus 1 and 4 raised to power x. So if I now first take x is equal to 2. So this will be 3 raised to power 3, which is 27. And it will be 4 square, which is 16. So what I get is quantity A is greater. Now let me take the value of x as 3. So 3 raised to power 4, which is 81. And this will be 4 cube, which is again 64, which is again giving me this as a greater answer. But let me take another value of x, which is 5. So if I take, this is 3 raised to power 6 and this will be 4 raised to power 5. Now if I compare 3 raised to power 6 with 4 raised to power 5, what I'll find is 4 raised to power 5 is greater than 3 raised to power 6, thereby giving me contradictory answers, and therefore the answer that I will mark in such a question is option number A. Moving ahead, look at the figure and you have to just find out the slope of these lines. I know the greater the angle that it makes with the positive direction of x-axis, the higher will be the slope. So K will have a higher slope than L, giving option number A as my answer. Now this requires the knowledge of algebra. So if you know the greater the angle, the greater will be the tan of the angle that it will make. So greater will be the slope. Therefore, option number A will be my answer. The higher the angle, the greater will be the slope. Let's look at another question. X plus y is equal to minus 1. So again, if I try to plug in the values, this could be 5 plus minus 6 is equal to minus 1, or minus 6 plus 5 is equal to minus 1. So x can and y can assume any value. I cannot say which of them is greater, x or y. In the first case, this could be x greater than y. In the second case, it could be y greater than x, thereby giving me option number D as my correct answer. Let's look at question number 23rd. Now, you can pause the video now, read the question carefully. Now here, X units are produced in 30 minutes and machine S, X units are produced in 48 minutes. So I know S machine is slow because it is taking more time to produce the same X units, where X is a positive integer. Okay. Now, if you remember the time and work concept, I can always take the LCM of 30 and 48, right? If I can assume them to be the value of X. Or if you can't take the LCM for the time being, you can assume 30 into 48 units is the value of X. So our machine can produce X units, these many units in 30 minutes. So that means it produces 48 units per minute. And S machine can produce the same, these many units in 48 minutes. So that means it produces 30 units in a minute. Now the two quantities that I have to compare is the number of units produced by machine R, this was R, working alone at a constant rate in 3. So per minute it is producing 48. Per hour it will be producing this much, and for 3 hours it will be producing this much. If I talk about B, per minute it is producing 30. So per hour it will be producing 30 into 60, and for 4 hours it will be producing this much. So the only thing that I now have to do is use my calculator. So it will be 48 into 180. So this will be 8640, and this will be 30 into 240 that I have. So I'll get my answer as 7200. So if I just look at the two calculations that I have done, I would see that option number A is coming out to be greater than option number B. Okay. Let's look at the next question. Among the 9,000 people attending a football game at College C, there were X students from C College and Y students who were not from C College. Perfectly alright. Now quantity A says the number of people attending the game who were not students. So there are 9,000 people who are attending the game, out of which X are students from College C and Y are students from college, not from college, but they're students. So I need to subtract them. So these many people are the people who are not students. Now if I compare it with quantity B, what is it? The two quantities turn out to be equal. Let's look at the last question from this lecture. Set S consists of all positive integer less than 81 that are not equal to the square of any integer. So this not is very, very important. Now square of any integer, what I need to know is 1 square is 1, 2 square 4, 3 square 9, then 16, 5 square 25, 36 and 7 square 49, 8 square 64, 9 square 81. So 81 is anyways not counted because they have to be less than 81. So if I just look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 numbers have to be subtracted from 80. Less than 81 means there are 80, out of which 8 would be subtracted. What I would get? I would get 72. So the number of integers in set S are 72, and if I compare it with quantity B, the two quantities comes out to be equal. So the answer for this will be option number C. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you have understood the concept of quantitative comparison. You can now move on to the part 2 of this, where you will have a little bit difficult question based upon quantitative comparison. You can like us and follow us on Twitter and Facebook to get more updates related to similar topics. You can visit us on our website edusathi.com to practice more questions on this and other related topics. Have a nice day.